Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me on this video today. My name is Pat, and I help people navigate their conscious or spiritual awakening process. And today I'm going to go over what I believe are the 6 stages of that process. Now, of course, you can say that there are multiple stages, but really there are 6 defined stages that you can find yourself in, and you can begin to make big changes or actually accept certain things in your life by knowing them. I found incredible value in knowing what these stages were and using them to balance my process as I continued to move forward. So the first epiphany is, what would you do if you knew that all of this was by design? And I mean really knew. If you could believe that all of your experiences, all of your suffering, all of your journey to this point right now, this moment, where you're about to learn these stages, what if it were all by design? If you could accept this belief system for you, what would that change in your life? How much easier would it make your process of allowing peace and a sense of clarity to come in your experience if that were the case? So today I'm going to do my best to allow this to be a reality for you as I cover each of these steps one by one right up here on the board. And with that, let's get right into it. I've got to say that one of the things that provided me the most clarity when I was going through things that I couldn't understand was realizing that there was a process to this. There was seemingly some type of a way that this works out. And it didn't just seem to be working out for me this way. It seems that anyone who has gone through this process has experienced these phases, maybe not in a particular order. I'm going to lay these out in a particular order that I myself experienced them, and that I also understand people that I work with, how they are experiencing it. So I'm sure that there are anomalies where people do understand these stages that we're going to cover in different orders. Maybe it happens in a different way for them. Maybe it's happened in a different way for you. But this is pretty much traditionally what we see. And the first stage that we're going to cover right here is the unconscious stage to waking up. So if you are talking about a spiritual awakening or a conscious awakening, what does that even mean? What are we waking up from? And you might say that we're waking up from the dream or the illusion that we are the character that was created through separation. So what that means is, as you were born into this world, you were experiencing the world for the first however many years from pure consciousness before you were aware of yourself as a character. And by that character, I mean the name you were given, the place that you were at, the ego's, the mind's identification to things, the identification of identifying things. There is a patterned process that is built up inside of the mind's construct of separating things and giving them different value systems. And then we, the awareness that was awareness when you were 2, and you didn't know you were 2, that awareness starts to attach its sense of self, I am, sense of self to these things. And it begins to build a story, and it begins to build a narrative. So if you could put this into perspective, when you were 3, you didn't have a story. You didn't have a narrative. You didn't have an identification of you as a being or a thing in this world. And then all of a sudden, 4, 5, 6, maybe you started having your first conscious memories and remembering this idea of who you are, what your belief systems are, all this character ID. And what that does is, the more we believe and we are taught certain things, limiting belief systems or fear projections from other people, the more that we are taught how this world works, the more we identify our I am, this sense of actually who you are. The more you identify with the character, then the more you are separated, if you will, in theory, from the actual consciousness that you are. Now, this is important later on because of what this consciousness, who you truly are. This is going to be important later. So we begin to develop a character that goes through these loops and these chapters of its life, learning new lessons, experiencing the wanted and the unwanted, the preferred and the not preferred, things that we experience emotionally and connect to. And then we also begin to develop the shadow self. And the shadow self is also part of the unconscious, living inside of your subconscious mind. So if you are in this stage, you're probably not in this stage. You're probably just to the part where you are waking up right here, which we'll go into in a moment. So if you are in the unconscious part of your process, just waking up now, this first part, you are coming into a realization that there is a character named you, but you're probably starting to ask much, much deeper questions about who you are, why you are here, what happened to me? How did I get here? And what do I do now? So the waking up process can either happen, I've experienced myself, and again, experience with people that I work with, one of two ways. It can either be from a jolting traumatic experience, something that just completely non sequitur, doesn't make any sense at all to your framework of reality inside of your mind concept or construct of how reality works, something that completely doesn't fit the paradigm, and you immediately wake up to a higher vantage point of consciousness and a deeper connection to yourself and deeper questions really about reality and about your world. And those questions begin to latch on to your mind and your story and your character, and they begin to break it apart. And many of the things and the belief systems that you once held start to get challenged. And inside of the challenging of those belief systems, we begin to form new perspectives on them in many cases. And this is like kind of like a give and take, a push and pull inside of the first part or the first stage of your awakening. The second thing is that it can happen over time. So maybe it wasn't some traumatic event that snapped you out and started to get you to really question your reality. Sometimes it could be progressive, where you're in an experience where over time, not so much incredibly crazy traumatic events, but small experiences that cause you to kind of like raise an eyebrow and really question your reality, why things are working the way they are, why they continue to go this way, why they go this way perpetually, and what can you do to stop it? It is seemingly suffering that absolutely is the catalyst for the human being, the conscious experience observer of you, waking up out of the dream that is wrapped inside of your mind's identification to things. So look at the first part of this is you are waking up from separation, meaning from the identification of the mind and your character and the things that you did and judgments and fear and guilt and shame. You're waking up from those lower experiences of consciousness to higher frequencies and vibrations and experiences and emotions of consciousness where higher perspective lives. And you're gradually becoming closer and closer to unity, to the actual conscious observer that you are. So this is stage one. So moving on to stage two. All right, here we are in stage two. So if you understand stage one being the unconscious and being limited by the ego and the mind and identification and attachment and judgment and fear, well, stage two of an awakening is straight euphoria. It's absolute bliss. It is literally just transcending that mind and that constraint, those chains that were on you for so long. It's literally transcending them in such a powerful way that you experience stages of extreme bliss, absolute euphoria, and a lessening of the ego's mind and control over you and your experience and your day. It's just absolutely incredibly high vibrational or mood, if you're not fully into the lingo yet of, vibration and frequency. You're in an incredibly good mood. And the reason for this is many of the things that were holding you down or that you believe to be true about you or limiting experiences inside of your world that you felt were the end all be all and what are you going to do? Many of those are released. They are absolutely just released and let go. Not because they're no longer true in your world or reality anymore, but because you're the meaning that you've given to them as far as what they, the power that they have over you is lifted. It's gone in this stage, in stage two of the awakening process. So it truly is extreme clarity. Also, another common experience is the experience of your instant download of believing and understanding that you have a purpose, even if you're not fully sure of what it is. It's usually like the gift realization phase where you are experiencing full emotional and conscious downloads of why you came here. Again, your purpose, there's just extreme clarity on your ability to share some gift with the world in some way. And in this moment, nothing but you sharing whatever this gift is of yours will do. It's very difficult for someone who has gone through this part of or phase of an awakening to go back to a regular life. It's very, very, very challenging because I believe once these experiences happen, once you actually do wake up, it's kind of I don't know anyone who has gone back and been like, I'm just going to go forget all this happened and go back to this unconscious life. It's usually once this happens, it's designed in a certain way. Your life was designed a certain way, and you had to experience certain things to get you to wake up. But once you do, this is where many feel that their life truly actually begins, that the first part of this process, the unconscious stage that we went over previously, all of that existed so that you could have this moment, which will start the next part of your awakening. So if you were in the bliss phase, or just transcending the bliss phase to phase 3, do your best to really enjoy it, to take notes, to journal, to write down what these epiphanies are, write down what these experiences are, take in as much of the bliss phase as you can, because we are about to go to phase 3. All right, so here we are, stage 3, the infamous dark night of the soul, or dark night of the ego, depending on how you perceive it or how you are taught. Many teach this as the dark night of the soul, because it's essentially the soul going through this process, if you will, this purging, releasing process. But I kind of tend to agree with the side of it that says that it is the dark night of the ego, because it's the ego that's dying. It is the ego that is really trying to fight for our attention. It's the ego that realizes that it's been exposed for the illusion and the lie that it is. And the light, if you will, of your consciousness is constantly shining upon this ego and all of the dark limiting stories that it has kept you inside of for so long. Now those stories are losing power, but there is still an observer, you, this I am, that is aware of this tennis match playing out on the stage of consciousness before you. And as you watch this happen, as you watch this release, this purging of so many parts of you that you believed you were, so many limitations that you lived by, and so many narratives that kept you perceivably safe, but in fact limited you from living the fullness of who you are, from even realizing the identity of the fullness of who you are as a spiritual conscious being on this earth, and really realizing your goal. You begin to see the limitations and how they have taken shape inside of your life. And what happens is there becomes this responsibility tug of war, if you will, I call it, where initially we go through our process blaming much of the world for where we are. And I know that I hold this personally very, very powerfully as a lesson in my life, where the first part of my journey in phase 1, stage 1, where I was going through the unconscious experience, I was really not willing to take responsibility for the belief systems that I had about myself, for the insecurities that I had and kept in my life that I lived to, but I would never actually admit or tell you that I lived to them, because they were my insecurities and I didn't want to reveal them. I was keeping them in the shadows for sure. So this is the part where the shadow self is being questioned big time, and it is revealing itself in a very, very, very stimulating, powerful way that can be extremely, extremely scary and painful to watch and experience this happen, whether you're observing it from a higher vantage point or whether you are in it as the character releasing and losing these limitations. When you're attached to a limitation, it's confusing because you're losing the limitation, which should be this amazing, joyful experience. But since you were attached to the limitation in a codependent, negative way, getting something from it, but not admitting it, it's painful because it's part of who we believed that we were. So this is why people who are looking to evolve and grow and expand, it seems like it should be a no-brainer that this, like, we let go of limiting belief systems that we now no longer identify or believe, and let's just accept the new one. We know that we are this powerful conscious creator. Let's accept this one. Why is it so difficult? Because we were attached as a character to this negative belief system, and it can actually be painful to let go of a limiting belief system. So the dark night of the soul, or the dark night of the ego, can be where all of this responsibility for who we have been and the choices we have made and the boundaries we have or have not set and the experiences that we have had as a human, we have to, in order to have this evolve any further without living in a perpetual state of suffering inside of the dark night of the soul, we have to accept responsibility for everything. We have to accept responsibility for all that we perceived good and wanted and all that we perceived unwanted or bad. We have created, experienced, and lived inside of for a purpose, all of it by design, whether we understand it or not. We have to, through this part, if you want to transcend, through this dark night of the soul as quickly as possible. I found it best within my own journey and with people that I assist every day to accept the best that you can. And again, this is a process that it can take time, human time, for us to actually begin to accept and release emotional attachment from these limiting belief systems as we evolve into full acceptance of all. And when you can take this responsibility, full acceptance for all in your life, then there's no longer anything that can actually hurt you. There's nothing actually that can be used against you that you're protecting. And it really is the protection of the shadow trying to walk through the world as though it doesn't exist that creates and perpetuates more of that experience manifested in our life. So one of the last things that I found that I put on the bottom here, which I really believe is the most powerful, and it sums it up, is it is the release of your victim story in order to really transmute this energy and transcend through the dark night of the soul / ego. It is essentially what we're saying here is, can you release your victim story? Can you release the story that says that the world happened to me, that this happened to me? Do you see why I am where I am because of this? Can we release that and then actually find the strength and perspective and connection to view all of the wanted, all of the unwanted, take responsibility for it, claim it as our own, for our journey, for our necessary components of waking up and expanding consciously, removing judgment from it, and say, I am now grateful for these things. I know even maybe if you're in stage 3 to hear this is like, shut up, Pat, I get it. But there is a place and a perspective where you, even you, anyone, all of us can say, I understand this so much that this needed to happen, that I am grateful for it, because I couldn't have evolved to this higher frequency of consciousness, to this higher potential for a new life without it. So if this mess, we'll call it, of unconscious living has led me to an awakened state through this suffering, and there's the only way that we really can do this, through this suffering, to now understand that I can live a life deliberately from my heart and live a passion and not be in bondage and trapped anymore, then I have no choice but to be grateful for it and take full responsibility for the entirety of this journey till now. And then we transcend, but this leads us to a tricky stage 4. All right, here we are, stage 4. Now I'm going to say that I believe they're all very, very important. I believe that they're all equally important. But I can't even say that because I believe that this is so important. This stage right here, which I call the now what stage or the limbo stage, is where I find most people come to me for any guidance or clarity on. The now what stage is after you have been on your journey for a little while, you are well aware of the unconscious phase and stage. You're well aware of the bliss stage after you wake up and how amazing life seems to be and how real that is. And then you're aware of and probably still in this dark night of the soul. And maybe you've been going through that part for a while and you have transcended all of your old limiting belief systems. You have gone through this purging process and this clarity. You've gone through that and you've lived with it for a little while and you've been existing in it for a little while, but there has been no new guidance, no new clarity, no anything. You're just feeling like you're in limbo for a really long time and you're kind of getting lessons and you're kind of learning new things and you're maybe in the research mode. I should have wrote that down here, where you're maybe constantly, consuming new content, reading new books, trying to find new videos to figure out how to get to the next step. How do we get to the next step? Your anxiety might try to return if you've been in this phase for a long time without knowing that this was a phase or a stage. Your anxiety comes back. Your ego tries to reestablish itself with, relabeling things in a different way, saying that, see, it wasn't worth it. What's the point? Why would you do this? It doesn't make any sense. Just go back to doing this. Go back to doing this. Start drinking more. Stop eating healthily. Start eating like garbage again. Like, it'll start to get its claws into you because most likely it has gone. You've been on this journey, if you're in this phase, long enough without a result. And I use that word result very, very, very deliberately because it is not your awareness, this thing that experienced bliss in stage 2. It's not your awareness that's trying to achieve a result. It's the ego that's trying to achieve a result, whatever that result might be for you in the world. And when it doesn't see that in this stage, it tries to talk you out of your spiritual journey. It tries to talk you out of your spiritual gains and your process. But here's the clarity. This part is also by design. And if you didn't know that, then you would think you were just in this loop, this limbo loop, and that it wasn't worth it. And what's it all for? And the longer you don't realize this phase, and the more time and evidence the ego has to claw its way back into your awareness and claim dominance again over your experience. Here's the deal. This last part right here, I know you feel disconnected. I know you don't feel like you're being guided. I know your anxiety is returning. And I know that you feel like you've done so much work because you've heard so much and you've come so far. You've done so much. And I know, I promise you that I know. And you have. Please know that you have. Here's what this phase is seeing if you can do. It's seeing if you can rest. It's seeing if you get it enough without a result, without feeling guidance. Will you rest? Because again, the ego and unconscious, I speak for myself for sure. And again, I'm fortunate enough to do this with humans every day. And there is a common denominator that I want to share with you. And that is that in the beginning of an unconscious journey, there is no resting. If I were to rest, the narrative that would come in that would say that I was worthless and useless. And what are you doing? You're nothing unless you perform. You're nothing unless you achieve. You're nothing unless you have. You're nothing unless you do. And everyone knows that you're nothing. That is what would be at play in stage 4 after your dark night of the soul. And you start to integrate this and you start to become this new spiritual version of yourself, your higher self coming in, your higher consciousness running your awareness experience, but no results. Things aren't happening fast. And it will really test you as to how well you believe this. How much are you just acting the part, or are you being the part because you believe and you understand so much how this works? The more you can allow yourself to rest during this phase, the more you're proving that you understand that there's no result to be had because you are in the moment and it's perfect as it is. It's testing your ability to see if you believe the ego that says you're a piece of garbage and you need to get back up and the spiritual crap isn't for you and it's not working. It doesn't work. It worked before during all these other phases, but now it's not working anymore. So you're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong. You're garbage. You're a piece of this, that, blah, blah, blah. The mind just coming in. It's seeing if you can put that out of your experience, and it's seeing if you can rest and let yourself rest because you have done so much work. You have done so much work if you are in this phase and you want to be able to let yourself sit in that work, sit in the energy of that experience and show yourself, your inner experience, that you believe what it is that you have gone through has a purpose, that you believe all of the higher guidance that you've had along the way, even though right now you feel disconnected from it. Showing this experience that you know that you are the source of it and that you are ready to transcend it. Allowing yourself to sit in that place of rest is what will pop you out of that loop and allow you to get to the next part of this, which is stage 5. All right, so here we are. We are almost done with our stages right now. Stage 5. This is the balance stage. So what this is basically the stage where you begin to integrate all of the higher conscious experiences that you've had, all of the lessons, if you will, that you have learned. We begin to integrate this into our experience here on Earth. So if you are this far along in the process, then this isn't going to sound crazy to you. If you are anywhere near stage 5 of a spiritual awakening, then what you understand probably pretty firmly is that there is a conscious experience that does not need a physical reality to manifest itself in your, the observer's, awareness. You can experience all of these sensory and intellectual narratives, all of these epiphanies, all of these perspectives and perception shifts in a place that has really nothing to do with your physical reality or your 5 physical senses. This is the realm of the higher conscious experience that you are also a part of and experiencing life, or life is experiencing itself really through you. So there's this higher stage. So when you hit that bliss stage, stage 2, when you hit that euphoria and all of the worldly issues that you've had are kind of removed immediately, and you're just living in this amazingly high vibrational bliss, you are living in a very heady, higher vibrational frequency of reality. You are living in a very, it's not dense. It's more like your 5D conscious experience. So what happens is the bliss, when we go from this bliss phase into this dark night phase of phase 3, we're coming back down to earth from this higher experience. You, again, are connected to both of these things. At the most dense and the most separated in your human identification, and in the most high frequency, amazing experience from your conscious or spiritual awakening. You are observing both of these experiences. You are not either of them. You are watching this play out. And we're trying to get you to connect to that observer so that you can live at that high vibration and integrate it into the 3D experience here on Earth, this integrative balance of the higher energy centers with the lower energy centers, clearing constantly and purging these experiences in your journey through loops, living that reality inside of your own life and your inner system, which will then be projected out into the universe, into your reality. And then other people by design who see that, you'll also be a catalyst to help them wake up by doing nothing, meaning you're not providing any service for them to wake up. They don't owe you anything. You don't owe them anything. Like, it's just by you being it, people will wake up, because we're designed to do that. We are designed, our higher consciousness, our higher self is designed to pick up other people that are doing this authentically. And then that causes the human to question certain things about their life. And provided there's, it's not being faked, which we would pick up on right away, you can really be a catalyst for another person. And that's what I truly believe that we are here for. That's what I believe is happening on the planet. Millions of people waking up all over the place on the planet. And this part of it allows that process, I believe, to unfold, because no one can hear something that they're not ready to hear. So you might find that when you're in stage 2 and you're in bliss mode and you're going like, well, this is amazing. And you want to tell everybody, you want to tell your friends, you want to tell your family. And they're just like, what the are you talking about? Like, what? Like, dude, you used to work at a bank. Like, what are you talking about? All of this spiritual conscious expansion stuff. Like, go back to the bank. Like, they don't get it. And initially we want everyone to get it because we're just in this heady place, but they can't hear it. They literally can't hear what you're saying if they're not of the frequency to listen. So it's just by being it, the nature of being it, that the right people will come to you in your experience here on Earth in this physical place. And you're using your high conscious experience. You're letting go of the lack of patience that you had for it to work now. And you can just be the essence of it every day. Enjoy the process here in your life, in your experience as you transcend your own journey. And you will literally, this is the transmutation of energy, The Alchemist. My absolute favorite book is literally, this is the journey, the hero's journey of going out, experiencing life far away from your home, and then realizing that you were always home in the first place so that you can actually be comfortable and safe in that home. But you've had this experience, you've had these new perspective shifts, and then you can use the totality of that experience to use your purpose and your gifts to be fulfilled, continually perpetuate your own inner fulfillment in your life. But you're going to wake other people up through that process. And that leads me to number 6. Took me a second to get that, but it's this. 6, stage 6. All right, and here we are in stage 6. Now, stage 6 is your purpose and passion part of your process. So in the beginning, when you're going through stage 1 in the unconscious, we are really going out in the world and we're trying to find who we believe we are in the world. And many of the things that we do aren't necessarily correlating to who we are as a person, to our spirit, to our sense of actual higher self, but more aligned with the fear equation of who we think we need to be to get others to give us approval or validation or love. And in many cases, through this egoic venture, we'll do anything to get that validation, believing that we don't possess it ourselves. So as you go through this process and you continuously expand through all of these stages, through the unconscious and the awakened stage of realizing that you are much, much, much more than this egoic character identification that you believed you were, wrapped in limitations that are preventing you from being your fullest self, to the blissful stage of awakening to higher consciousness and this download, this infinite rush of higher consciousness and experience, and realizing that you are all and everything in one, and you are just observing a character that is existing in this world, and that you can truly, truly use your story to make changes that are going to continuously affect the rest of your life in such a positive way. And then shifting into the dark night of the soul, where finally all of these realizations come back to earth and the ego tries to rush in, and you're purging and you're evolving through so many stories of limitation and lack and negativity and insecurities, your family's insecurities, you're probably for lifetimes of millennia of insecurities of that frequency of human being as we evolve in consciousness, just as humans, as we are here to evolve. We are here to really transmute all of that energy, shifting through the dark night of the soul, popping into this loop identification with nothing, with just absolute nothing. Nothing is working out anymore. You are in limbo. You are just experiencing no guidance. You're experiencing nothing at all. And the patience that this is designed to teach us so that we can allow ourselves to rest and really be comfortable in our own skin without the ego using these connections to achievement or results in order to give us our value or our worth. So now, where do we go from there? Balance. We use our higher consciousness, bringing it down into this 3D world, this 3D reality, being it, becoming it, or working towards that so that we can use our actions in the world to continuously integrate our story and our consciousness in one. Stage 6 is really where we begin to shift from the egoic phase of on the unconscious and doing things to give us value and worth to now realizing our value and worth from the inside and choosing what we want to do that best supports that, using our gifts to translate that message to the world. So in the beginning, we are not believing that we are full and complete and whole, and we are trying to find things in the world that make us feel that way. And in stage 6, we have come full circle, if you will, and a full evolution of a loop, consciously, physically, spiritually, and we are full aware. We are being it. There is no separation between this conscious experience and the universe and the moment and us, the character. We've now completely integrated it, and we are going to choose what we believe is best suited for us, because things that we want to do to share our gifts that will inspire others to wake up on their own journey as well. So this is something that's subjective. It is particular to each person. And I believe that it's something that is supplied, something that most likely we've known the entire time, but buried it somewhere under a trash compact of limiting belief systems that said that it doesn't work that way, or we're not able to do these things, or, go out and get a real job, or, get treated in relationships like crap because that's what happens. So it's after we uncover all of these limiting belief systems, we could truly find ourselves living in stage 6, which is a stage of passion and purpose. And then this will literally perpetuate moment by moment, getting stronger and stronger. And then what I believe will happen, what I found for myself happens, is that these stages will continuously happen in elevating loops of consciousness, and it will allow us to shed more and more layers of limitation of this lower frequency energy, of this lower vibrational human egoic experience, transcending that separation, transcending that fear, transcending that doubt, and allowing us to live in a state of love and trust and alignment with not just the moment, but the expanding universe as a whole. So these are literally the 6 stages that I found to really not just be true for myself and others that I work with, but also it's really kind of a comforting guidance system, because we can look at all of these stages and know subjectively for ourselves that it seems to make sense. This isn't me teaching technically or telling you anything that your conscious spirit doesn't know. It's just the human gets lost in these stages and doesn't really know what to do when it is in the maze of one of these stages. And it really, sometimes viewing all of them at once from a clearer vantage point will allow you to be free from the limitations and the fear of being inside of one. And it can let you know that the next phase could be right around the corner in the next moment, the next day, the next week, but it's coming if we allow these processes to unfold the way that they were meant to for us in our journey. And if we can do that without judgment, we will hop loops and limitations very, very quickly. You will hop vibrational frequencies very, very quickly. And as a result, your reality will literally begin to shift more in alignment with what you came here to do. And that is what I wish for each and every one of you. If you found any value in this video, if you know anyone who may benefit from it, I would love for you to share that with them. If you have your process in place and you are identifying one of these stages for yourself, I'd love for you to comment and let me know what stage you are in and if you're struggling with anything inside of that stage. And until next time, have an amazing day, a wonderful night, and I will see you guys then.